Okay, I'm going to get started by just saying good morning to all of you guys. Welcome to Wat Tung Yu. Nice to see everyone here. Welcome to everyone who's joining us online as well. This is the first day of a 5-day course where I'm going to be helping you guys to understand various aspects of the path to enlightenment. This course is titled Experiencing the Jhanas and the 4 Stages of Enlightenment, because we're going to be focusing a certain amount of our time helping you to understand what those jhanas are and how to move into those jhanas and then into the 4 stages of enlightenment and what those are. This path to enlightenment is where the Buddha taught how to train the mind to get to the point where the mind is peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. These are all eliminated from the mind because you've purified the mind of the causes and conditions that are producing it. And on your way to enlightenment, you would move through these jhanas, which are essentially enhanced qualities of mind that you're experiencing. There's certain phases that your mind goes through. And then there's 4 stages that your mind goes through in terms of the stages of enlightenment. So you guys are going to understand that more as we go through the course over the next 5 days. But essentially, the Buddha is helping you to get rid of these pollutions that are in the mind, needing to uproot them out of the mind. Because oftentimes people think that the reason why you experience these feelings like anger, sadness, and frustration is from other people. Oftentimes we blame other people, that you are making me angry or you are frustrating me, where in reality it's actually being caused by one's own mind. And you're going to be able to learn that this morning in a way that you can independently verify. All the teachings of the Buddha are independently verifiable. You're not interested in believing anything that I share with you. So I'm going to be teaching you over the course of 5 days all the various teachings that you need to be able to move through these jhanas and into the 4 stages of enlightenment. This is a course that I only teach twice a year because the way our program is laid out is we have the foundational program that we teach every month. So it's the first full week of every month. Then 4 times a year, I teach harmony in relationships. And then twice a year, I teach this course. And then we have 2 retreats, a retreat that gives everything that you need to be able to get to the first stage of enlightenment, and then everything you need to be able to get to enlightenment itself. So there's various programs that kind of feed into each other. And this is a course that I teach about twice a year to be able to help students to understand these enhanced qualities of mind in the 4 stages of enlightenment and some other topics along the way. I'm going to share with you guys what I'm actually going to be teaching as we get going. This morning, I'll share with you guys the course outline and all the different topics that you're going to be learning. But this enlightened mental state that I was just referring to, where the mind has eliminated all those discontent feelings, not only has that been accomplished by someone who's purified their mind, but you'll notice that the mind's focused and concentrated. You have clarity of mind and deep memory because you've uprooted the pollutions out of the mind, and the mind is now performing optimally. So you'll notice that your mind is experiencing focus and concentration and clarity and deep memory. And if you don't have those things now, the only reason why is because the mind is untrained. But as you train your mind, you'll be able to experience enhanced qualities. You'll notice that your personal and professional relationships are really blossoming and they're at ease because there's not any bitterness and harshness and hostility within your own mind anymore. Because when you're putting that stuff out into your relationships, it's all going to be coming back to you. So by the time you purify your mind, you won't be bitter and harsh and hostile and resentful in your relationships anymore. And you won't be putting that out through your intentions, your speech, and your actions for an extended period of time. So you'll notice that your relationships really transform. You'll get to the point where you're not even in a bad mood, that it's physically impossible for the mind to experience a bad mood by the time you purify the mind and make your way to enlightenment. This morning, I'm going to do meditation with you guys and help you guys to do a little bit of meditation. And I'm going to be teaching you meditation over the period of time that we're in this course. There's various meditations I'm going to be teaching you, but this morning we're going to actually do meditation together. Then afterwards, I'm going to teach you the 8-fold path. We're going to use the whole morning to be able to teach this to you. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha, where everything that he taught plugs into this in one way or the other. This is the path to enlightenment. This is how you actually attain enlightenment, is by learning this path inside and out and training your mind on a day-to-day basis through these teachings that he shares. Then this afternoon, after we come back from our lunch break, I'm going to teach you what's called the 3 poisons, or the 3 unwholesome roots, or the 3 fires. This is going to give you a broader and deeper understanding of what's really going on inside the mind, so you can understand what the Buddha's teachings are and why he's teaching you various solutions. So I'm going to explain to you what the problems are that he discovered from a high level, and then I'm going to explain the solutions that he shared in order to implement so that you can gradually train your mind. So if you'd like to join for meditation, you're welcome to do so. There's essentially 4 positions that the Buddha taught: seated, lying, standing, and walking. And oftentimes people are learning in the seated position, either sitting on the floor in a chair. Maybe if someone's at home, they might be on a bench or a wheelchair or a sofa or something like this. You can really sit however you're comfortable. I'm going to do some chanting to ease into the meditation. And if you'd like to chant along, they're on a laminated sheet over there on the cabinet. You're welcome to get the daily chanting sheets. And for those of you guys that are online, you'll find these on our website. If you go to buddhadailywisdom.com and click on free books, and you kind of scroll down towards the bottom, you'll see the daily chanting sheet there, and you'll be able to chant along. It's important to understand that these chants aren't anything like a rite or ritual or a ceremony or worship. It's not prayer or anything like that. There was none of those kinds of things taught during the lifetime of the Buddha. Now, people have added things to his teachings since his lifetime that are rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, and even prayer, but none of that stuff is actually going to lead to your enlightenment. And as we go through the course, you'll understand why. So the Buddha taught you to cultivate wisdom and train your mind. He used chanting during his lifetime in order to help his students commit the teachings to memory, so that every 2 weeks, his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally, because everything he taught was oral. The technology to write things down didn't exist in that region of the world 2,500 years ago. So they needed to use some kind of way to be able to commit the teachings to memory, so they use chanting. So you can see by the origins of chanting that there's nothing mystical or magical here. That's not what the chants are. In fact, if you read the English translations, you're going to see a lot of admiration and gratitude and respect for the Buddha. And because of that, I don't think the Buddha actually even created these chants himself, because a Buddha wouldn't walk around and say, hey, chant these things for me, out of respect for me. Here, students, do this, right? That would be ego. That would be arrogance to try to motivate people to chant things for you. So I am assured that the Buddha didn't actually teach these chants. They probably came from his students, either during his life or after his death. Because if you learn from a teacher how to move from the anger and the sadness and frustration and all those other discontent feelings to the peace and joy that is the enlightened mental state, and this person didn't want anything from you or expect anything from you, you'd probably have a lot of respect and gratitude for that person too. So that's where I suspect these chants actually came from. So I use them in order to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. So it's important to know that there's no rites, rituals, ceremonies, or worship, or any kind of prayer, anything like that as part of the teachings of the Buddha, because everything's about cultivation of wisdom. So after the chants, I'm going to come in with some guidance to be able to guide you during the meditation, and you'll hear me kind of instructing you and helping you to understand meditation while we're actually doing it. But then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're all meditating together. I'm sure you'll hear a sound in the environment. You might hear a dog barking or a car going by, maybe a bird chirping, maybe someone will sneeze or cough or something like this, because you can't be in an environment where it's permanently quiet. It's impossible to be in an environment where it's permanently quiet, because the whole world around you is impermanent. So as long as your mind doesn't have a craving for permanence, when you hear a sound, you won't be annoyed or frustrated or agitated, because you'll know, this is just impermanence. This sound is going to arise, it's going to change, and it's going to fade away. Then after that period of time of quietness where we're all meditating here and everybody online, we're going to come out of that with some more chanting. And then that's where I'll start today's class. I'll introduce you to what we're going to be learning throughout the 5 days, and then we'll start learning the Eightfold Path as a way to help you guys get started with the teachings of the Buddha, for some of you guys that are brand new to the teachings. And then for some of you guys that have been learning for a little bit, this will be a nice refresher for you to understand the Eightfold Path. In terms of your body position, as I mentioned, there's 4 positions. There's seated, lying, standing, and walking. And all of these can be employed at different times. And you can learn these different positions at different times because you would need them at different times in your practice. It's like creating a tool belt for you, that you have these different positions available to you. But since people are oftentimes learning in the seated position, I'll give you guys a little bit of guidance on this to help you find something that's even more comfortable for you. Like I mentioned, you can sit in a chair, you can sit on the floor. Maybe if you're at home, you're on a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair, you can sit however you're comfortable. So what I share with you is just suggestions for you to consider. It's not anything that's kind of like a hard, fast rule. There's none of that kind of thing in the teachings of the Buddha. It's really up to you to decide for yourself how you would like to sit. But if you are sitting on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. This will kind of soften your seat a bit. And if you're going to bring your legs together in the cross-leg position, you might just decide to do that lightly. Whereas if they're real tight, this can impede the circulation and cause pain in the lower body. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets the hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, allowing the circulation to flow. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. And if you'd like to use this, you could, but it's not about everybody doing it exactly the same way, because we all have different bodies and we're going to find different things to be comfortable. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or on their knees. Some people put their palms up. You might even rest your hands comfortably in your lap. So you can sit however you're comfortable with your legs and your hands and your arms. And those of you guys that are in chairs or bench or a sofa or a wheelchair, it's the same thing. You can sit however you're comfortable. Some people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly crossed at the ankles, but you can see me sitting in a chair here with my legs crossed, so that's an option for you as well. In terms of your hands and arms, you can also put those wherever you're comfortable, because it's up to you to find what's comfortable for you. And all those options that I mentioned earlier are options for you as well. In terms of your upper body, it's helpful if this is erect. If your sternum is up and your shoulders are back, this will keep your mind attentive and alert during the meditation, because this is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So you would like the mind to be attentive and alert during this period. So by having the sternum up and the shoulders back, it'll keep your mind attentive and alert so you can actively train your mind. It also makes it easy for you to breathe in through your nose and out through your nose. So again, I'm going to start with some chanting to ease us into the meditation, and you guys are welcome to join along. Then I'm going to come back in with some guidance to be able to help you. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Bhutang Mahakavanhang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokawitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanang Bhoto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathe in gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Bhutang Bhagavanang Abhivateyami Savakato Bhagavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rogavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanang Poto Bhagavati. Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to everyone. Welcome to all of you guys. Welcome to everyone online as well. As I was mentioning, this is the first day of a 5-day course. It's titled Experiencing the Jhanas and the 4 Stages of Enlightenment. We're going to be starting each class with meditation in the morning, and then in the afternoon we'll be doing meditation as well. So over the coming 5 days, you'll get an opportunity to build up your meditation practice and see the effect that it has, having meditated at least twice a day. If you meditate with us here, you're going to be meditating twice a day over the coming 5 days, and it'll kind of help build up your practice, and you'll be able to see the impact that it has to your mind as you're going through your day-to-day life. So I'm going to introduce you guys to this course so you'll understand what I'm going to be sharing with you over these 5 days, and then I'm going to move into talking about the Eightfold Path to be able to help you guys to learn what that is. This is my contact information that if you guys would like to contact me for any reason during the course or after the course, you're welcome to use this information. It's all on our website, so you'll find it there. And the main reason why I share this with you is that afterwards, maybe you might need some help, because while you're here this week, you can just talk to me. If you're coming to class, great, I'll see you here. If you're not coming to class, it's okay. You don't have to let me know. I don't take attendance or anything like that. It's up to you. If you're here, you'll be able to learn, and if not, then we'll see you another time. So you can use this contact information maybe after the class, after the course. If you're needing help with anything, you're always welcome to reach out and be able to get help from me. So in terms of the kind of schedule and plan, each day we start at 9 a.m. I do chanting and meditation. Today I needed to give you a little introduction, but tomorrow you're going to see we'll just go right into it, because you're going to already understand the things that I shared with you today. So we're just going to go right into chanting and meditation. Then around 9:30, I start sharing discussion on the teachings. Some people call this a Dhamma talk. The word Dhamma means teachings, so it's a talk about the teachings, because you're going to need more than just meditation to get to enlightenment. You wouldn't be able to just meditate your way to enlightenment. This is one of the biggest myths about the life story of the Buddha. People think that he sat under a tree, he meditated, and instantly got to enlightenment. So in those kind of communities, you'll see that they'll really focus a lot on meditation, maybe meditating 8, 10, 12 hours a day, where you can't actually do that. It's sustainable. You can't live a life where you're meditating 8, 10, 12 hours a day. There's other things that you need to do in life, and there's other teachings that you need besides that in order to be able to get to enlightenment. And that's what you'll see in the Eightfold Path, that there's multiple aspects of this journey to enlightenment. It's not just meditation. So I'll be teaching you some things along the way. And the way that I see these is I see it as a discussion. It's not a sermon or a lecture or anything like that. It's me sharing information with you to help you understand the teachings. It's you working to understand that and gain clarity on it, and then ask questions. As we go throughout our course, you guys are able to ask any and all questions that you like. We have microphones here in the white bowl. You can just get a microphone and press the gray button, hold it up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. And then you can keep these microphones with you, because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question. You can just share it with them, because if you spoke here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. So this will make it nice for everybody to be able to participate. And then if you're not using your mic, if you could just turn it off so we don't get feedback through the speakers, that would be great. And for anybody who's in Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, you can ask questions by putting that into the comments section, or you can raise your hand electronically in Zoom, unmute your microphone, and then ask any questions that you like that way as well. So I'm going to be gradually walking you through the teachings, and this is where you're going to have an opportunity to be able to see what the Buddha taught and what he didn't teach as well. This is going to really help you, because everything that I share with you is based on the original words of the Buddha. A lot of times people aren't studying with the original words of the Buddha, and this is why you don't see massive numbers of enlightened beings in the world, because even though there's 500 million people that consider themselves to be practicing the teachings of the Buddha, there's very few of them that are actually learning with the original words of the Buddha. So you would need to learn with his original words in order to be able to make your way to this enlightened mental state. And as I'm teaching you in all these various classes throughout the course, I'm sure you're going to hear things that are different than what you currently understand about the world. And if you're in a course where you are hearing things that are exactly the same that you already understand, you're actually in the wrong course. Because if everything that I say is the same things that you already know, you're not actually able to grow and evolve and develop further. So when you hear me share things with you during these discussion periods that are opposite of what your mind's currently thinking about the world, that's an opportunity for you to ask questions and get clarity, because you're going to need that. Because whatever you're currently thinking, if you're experiencing anger and sadness and frustration and all those other discontent feelings, the reason why is because there's a certain amount of lack of wisdom in the mind. And if you were in a class where everything that you were learning was exactly the same things that you already know, that means you're not transforming your mind to acquire wisdom to learn something new that's going to now help you to transform your mind away from the anger and the sadness and frustration and all those other discontent feelings. So if you're here and you hear me say things that are opposite of what you're currently thinking about the world, just ask questions and I will help you to understand. And that's where you can actually grow and learn and evolve as an individual, because that's what the path to enlightenment is all about, is becoming a better and better human being, evolving beyond animalistic instincts and evolving to a better and better human being. And that needs wisdom in order to occur. So feel free to ask me any and all questions during class or at breaks, or anytime you would like to talk. You're always welcome to ask me questions about why the Buddha taught certain things that he did. And this will help to inform you about his teachings and how to get to this enlightened mental state. Then we generally take a lunch around 12 o'clock. You'll see that we'll kind of break for lunch around that time, maybe a little bit earlier some days, maybe a little bit later other days. You'll kind of see that it fluctuates. So we'll take a lunch break, and we generally have about an hour and a half lunch break each day. I try to shoot for that so you guys have a nice long time to go out, get food, spend time with each other, have conversations. And some people even just stay here and sleep and take a nap. You might even see me do that from time to time, just taking a nap here, or go get something to eat and come back and take a nap. So feel free to use this space however you like, because a temple doesn't belong to me. It doesn't belong to anybody here. It's a community center for all of us to use it as we please. So if taking a nap here is something you like to do, go for it. We got plenty of cushions. Just relax and take it easy. Then when we come back from lunch, we'll generally be doing meditation each day, and then we'll move into some talk sometimes about meditation. Today, it's not going to be about meditation, but we're going to be doing a talk in the afternoon as well. And then we generally finish up around 3 each day. So this is kind of the structure that we have for each day. In terms of what I'm going to be teaching you, it's based on this first book. The vast majority of what I'm going to be teaching you is in this first book of our book series. It's titled Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. And you can get this book by downloading it from our website for free. You can take it and go print it yourself if you like. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing cost, and we'll use those to go buy more books for other people. Or you can get it on Amazon. If your country has access to Amazon, you can order it there as well. So I'm going to be teaching you chapters 3, 4, 5, 8, 11, 16, 17, 18, and 20. These are the chapters that I'm going to be sharing as part of the course. And there's other things in here that aren't actually in the book, so you'll see me teaching those as well. And each time I'm teaching a topic, you'll see that it has the chapter. Because if you'd like to be reading the book along with the course, that would be really helpful for you. Because there's certain things that are in the course that aren't in the book, but there's certain things that are in the book that aren't in the course as well. So the combination of the two will help you be really informed. So you can get this in all these different ways. And it's the first book of a 13-volume book series. Okay, these are the topics that I'm going to be sharing. This morning, I'm going to be teaching you the Eightfold Path. This is the path for all humans to enlightenment. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha. Everything he taught plugs into this in one way or another. You would need to know this inside and out, backwards and forwards, left, right, up, down. This is why oftentimes students have been studying with me for a while. They often come and learn this particular teaching multiple times. So this might be the first time that you learn it, but for other people, they might have been learning it multiple times because you really need to soak it into the mind in order to practice it. So I'm going to be teaching you guys that. This afternoon, I'm going to be teaching you the transforming the mind with the 3 poisons and eliminating those from the mind. That's a high-level description of what is really going on in the unenlightened mind and why it's experiencing what it's experiencing on a day-to-day basis, and then how to actually eliminate these. Because it's through eliminating these craving, anger, and ignorance that the mind will be purified and you'll experience enlightenment, having eliminated these 3 poisons or 3 unwholesome roots or 3 fires. Then tomorrow I'm going to teach you about the jhanas. This is where I'm going to help you to understand what these are. Just as a heads up, these are enhanced qualities of mind that you're experiencing as you're putting together the Eightfold Path. Your mind moves through these 4 phases, and you'll be able to see that your mind's actually doing this because the Buddha describes what these are, and as your mind's experiencing it, you'll be able to see that it's actually occurring. And this is where it gets really real for you when you're learning and practicing the teachings of the Buddha, because this individual spoke 2,500 years ago. He taught, and then you train your mind with his teachings, and you see that your mind is experiencing exactly what he talked about 2,500 years ago. And it's like, whoa, this is pretty impactful to be able to acknowledge this. So I call this that the light bulb is flickering, because during these enhanced qualities of mind, you start seeing some of the qualities of enlightenment start shining through. You start getting these glimpses of what enlightenment is like, because it's like the light bulb flickering. Your mind is not enlightened yet when you're in the jhanas, but you're starting to get these little glimpses of what enlightenment is like. Maybe for a few minutes or a few hours, you'll start seeing some of the qualities of enlightenment start shining through. So I'm going to talk to you guys about what those are in more detail so you'll understand them and you'll be able to know that your mind is experiencing these. Because once you start experiencing these, your practice starts to kind of pivot and it starts to shift, and you start focusing on what's called the 10 fetters. The 10 fetters are 10 individual pollutions that the Buddha discovered in the mind, and we're going to be talking about those when we describe the 4 stages of enlightenment. I'm going to explain to you what these 10 fetters are in more detail than some of you guys have learned in the past. So I'm going to help you to understand what these 10 fetters are and how they get uprooted out of the mind. In order to uproot them out of the mind, these 10 pollutions, you need the Eightfold Path. So that's why I'm teaching you that first. But then I'm going to help you understand these 4 stages that the mind's going to go through. Because there's 4 preliminary phases that the mind goes through called the jhanas. But then once your mind moves through those, your mind now enters into the 4 stages of enlightenment. And the mind is actually enlightened when you get to the 4th stage of enlightenment. So you'll understand that more tomorrow. Then I'm going to help you understand the 10 fetters themselves. Here, we're going to kind of touch on it as part of this particular talk, but then I'm going to go into it in more detail, helping you to understand each one of the fetters, the symptoms that you're going to be experiencing when you're having these fetters, because every unenlightened mind has these fetters or these pollutions. And then I'm going to explain to you some of the solutions to be able to help you understand how to eliminate these 10 fetters from the mind. Then we're going to talk about how to acquire concentration, because this is an important aspect of your practice, is developing concentration, because that's where you'll be able to focus and have clarity of mind in your day-to-day activities and be able to bring forth all your wisdom to be able to make wiser and wiser decisions in your day-to-day life. So I'm going to help you to understand how to develop the mind to have more concentration. Then we're going to talk about eliminating the ego. This is like the arrogance, the pride, the mind judging other people and putting yourself above people and below people. It's kind of like the mind wanting to have a pecking order and seeing yourself as superior to other people or maybe inferior to other people, which is actually just as dangerous to your mind as putting yourself above people, is putting yourself below people. The Buddha taught that everybody is equal, and thinking about everybody as being equal is what's going to help you have more harmonious relationships with the people around you. Because if you talk down to some people and you talk up to other people, your mind still has this conceit and this ego, and it's going to cause you difficulties and complications in your day-to-day life. So I'm going to teach you what the ego is and how to actually eliminate it, using various practices to actually eliminate it. And that's where you'll be able to reside more harmoniously with all beings around you. Then I'm going to teach you about the evolution of your consciousness from animal to human. This is where you're going to be able to see how we've had previous lives in the past, and that now in this human realm, our mind tends to retain some of the qualities of our animal existences. And even though we're in the human realm, our consciousness has been conditioned to function somewhat like an animal. We are not animals. Some people think of human beings as animals, but we're not. We're very different than an animal. But our unenlightened mind functions oftentimes very much like an animal. And understanding these qualities of our animal existences and how the unenlightened human mind oftentimes functions that way, it can help you to understand more about what you're doing on the path to enlightenment, which is shedding these animalistic instincts. By shedding these animalistic instincts, you can become a better and better human being where you're functioning more wisely with the people around you. And this is where you'll experience more and more wholesome results. So by understanding this evolution of our consciousness and how we move from one existence to the other, and we're going to be talking about the 5 realms of existence and things like this, the cycle of rebirth. I'm going to introduce you guys to that in this particular talk. It'll help you to understand more of what you're doing on the path to enlightenment. And then I'm going to teach you how to eliminate your fears. By the time you get to enlightenment, you won't have any fear in your mind whatsoever. Even the fear of death, you will have eliminated that by the time you get to enlightenment. So if you have fears right now, like fear of spiders or heights or fear of anything really, a fear of being in a car accident or a fear of death, or any of these kinds of fears, I'm going to teach you something very specific that's going to help you to eliminate your fears. First, you need to know the Eightfold Path, but then once you know that, then I'm going to be able to help you to understand how to target any kind of fears that you have and really eliminate those. Then we're going to talk about this being of God. Sometimes people think that the Buddha didn't teach about God. Sometimes people will say the Buddha denied the existence of God or he rejected God. This isn't actually true. This is coming from someone who hasn't actually studied his teachings very closely. If you look in the teachings of the Buddha, he does mention this being God multiple times throughout his teachings, but he doesn't place God at the center of his teachings because it's not God who determines whether you get to enlightenment or not. It's you that determines that. So he put you at the center of his teachings. But he did teach about this God, this being of God. So you can actually make your way to enlightenment with a relationship with God if somebody would like to do that. But you can also make your way to enlightenment without a relationship with God as well, because it's not God who determines whether you get to enlightenment. But based on what you've been taught before about this being God, you might actually be believing certain things about this being that are untrue. If you've been taught that this being controls you or punishes you or rewards you, or if you're taught that this being has some plan for you and you have to fulfill that destiny or that plan, or if you've been taught to pray to God and ask God to change things in your life and things of this nature, this isn't actually what this being does. And I'm going to teach you in a way that you can independently verify what this being is actually doing and how you can actually either have a relationship with this being and get to enlightenment, clearing up some of your understanding about this being, or how you can get to enlightenment without a relationship with this being. I can teach you either way, and it's your choice of what it is that you would like to do. But depending on what you've been taught, you might have even been taught to fear this being. You might have been taught to worship this being, things like this. And these are not things that would promote enlightenment, because if you feared anything, including this being, you're not going to be able to experience enlightenment. So I'm going to teach you about this being in a way that you can independently verify, and then it's up to you to decide whether you'd like to have a relationship with this being or not as part of your journey to enlightenment. I'm going to teach you what's called the 5 hindrances. These are obstacles that will hinder you or block you from getting to enlightenment. The Buddha taught 5 things that will actually hinder you or obstruct you. They're like roadblocks to your enlightenment. And when you understand what they are and you understand the solutions to them, if you start experiencing them, you can overcome them with those solutions. Because the Buddha teaches you all about how to get to enlightenment, but then he also says these are the 5 things that are going to hinder you from actually getting to enlightenment. So I'm going to teach you those as well. And then by the time we get to the end of the course, I'm going to teach you how to determine if you've actually attained enlightenment, because you would like to know that, is how to determine if you yourself have attained enlightenment. Because by the time you get to enlightenment, you'll know that your mind's enlightened. I don't suggest that you convince yourself that you are enlightened. I'll explain to you the reason why when we get to that talk, but nonetheless, you will know that you're enlightened by the time you get to enlightenment. So I'll explain to you more about that when we get to that. I'm going to help you develop all these different meditations: the breathing mindfulness meditation, loving kindness meditation, the meditation to eliminate sexual cravings, and the meditation to realize non-self. These are the 4 meditations that the Buddha taught. They're the only 4 that he actually taught. In the foundational programs and in the harmony and relationship programs, we focus on breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation. But now in this program, we're going to move beyond those and move into meditation to eliminate sexual cravings and meditation to realize non-self. And you'll understand what those are and why they're important to your practice once we get to that point in time. And then you're going to do these in the seated, lying, standing, or walking position. So I'm going to be teaching you that as well. And then we're going to be doing Buddhist chanting throughout the entire course. And then as part of the end of this course, I'm going to teach you how to integrate the teachings into your life and how to get continued support in your journey to enlightenment. Because nobody here is going to get to enlightenment in 5 days. It's not possible, right? It took the Buddha 6 years to get to enlightenment. So it's going to take you some time. You're going to need some support, and you're going to need to know how to integrate these teachings into your life. Because if we spend the next 5 days here and you learn and you grow and develop, okay, that was really wonderful. But to really get the most benefit out of our time, you're going to need to integrate the teachings into your day-to-day life. And that's where you're going to see the most benefit. So I'm going to teach you how to take what you've learned from here and integrate it into your day-to-day life so that you can really experience the benefit long-term beyond these 5 days that we're together. So do you guys have any questions on what you're going to be learning during the course? Anything you'd like to ask? And remember, you guys online, you can ask questions too by putting that into Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom. You're more than welcome to ask any questions that way. Okay. I don't see any questions anywhere on any of our platforms. Okay. So now I'm going to move into, or sometimes I do breathing mindfulness meditation after I introduced the course, but I did it before today. But now I'm going to move into this Eightfold Path, helping you guys to understand this Eightfold Path. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha. This is where everything is guided towards. Everything integrates into this Eightfold Path. There's essentially 8 individual factors that the Buddha taught: right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. And you're going to need to know this inside and out, backwards and forwards, left, right, up, down. This is the core teaching of the Buddha. And if this is your first time learning it, then okay, you're going to learn it the first time, but just understand you're going to need to know it more than that. You're going to need to probably learn it more than one time. You're going to need to commit it to memory. And there's nothing here in the teachings of the Buddha that you can just snap your fingers and instantly start doing. It's going to be gradual training, gradual practice and gradual progress. So you're going to see that about your journey to enlightenment, that you're going to need to revisit some of these topics more than one time. And this is one of those topics. And this is one of the few things that you're going to ultimately need to commit to memory. And I can help you to be able to do that, because you can study this on your own in classes like this and with the books and resources and stuff like that. But then you can also sit down with me privately and almost like you're teaching me, so that you can confirm that you understand it. You can kind of explain each one of the factors, and then I can confirm for you whether or not you're understanding it or not. And I'm going to walk you through each one of these using the words of the Buddha. And it's important to understand that whenever you're studying the teachings of the Buddha, to never believe his teachings. His teachings aren't based in belief. You're not believing a bunch of things and hoping something good happens when you die. Instead, you're learning, examining, and investigating his teachings. You're then reflecting on those to independently verify whether they're true or they're false. And then you're practicing his teachings, integrating them into your day-to-day life in order to transform your mind. And I'll show you how to do this as I walk you through these teachings throughout the course. Particularly here, I'm going to show you how to do this this reflection, and this practice of integrating it into your day-to-day life. This is the way that you need to be able to awaken the mind in order to get to wisdom. You can't believe your way to enlightenment, because with belief, you don't know what's true or false. You need to get to the point that you're actually understanding with wisdom what is happening in the world around you. Because when you're angry or you're sad or experiencing stress or anxiety, this is your mind having a lack of wisdom. It's struggling in the world. It's having difficulties because it's living in a world that it doesn't understand. And the only way that you can get to a better understanding is through the cultivation of wisdom. And that's why you're not interested in believing the teachings, because with belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it because somebody convinced you to believe it, or you convinced yourself to believe it. So you need to get to wisdom, and you can only do that through learning, through reflecting to independently verify, and through practicing. And what the Buddha teaches you is that when you're learning his teachings, that you listen with eager ears, right? Active listening, because that's what's going to help you to be able to investigate and examine his teachings. So as I go, feel free to ask any and all questions as we go during our journey to helping you to understand these teachings, and specifically this morning, the Eightfold Path. So here's the words of the Buddha on right view, this first factor of the Eightfold Path. He says, "In what, monks, is right view? It is, monks, the wisdom of discontentedness, the wisdom of the cause of discontentedness, the wisdom of the elimination of discontentedness, and the wisdom of the way of practice leading to the elimination of discontentedness. This is called right view." So here, what he's doing is he's pointing to another teaching. This is just a way for him to point to something called the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths is a more exhaustive teaching that has 4 simple statements that explains to you the problem in your mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. So here, he's just pointing to that because there, like I mentioned to you, there's teachings that plug into the Eightfold Path. So underneath of this line right here, I've put the top section of the Four Noble Truths, just so you can build confidence that what the Buddha is talking about here with right view is the Four Noble Truths. If you look here, you can see the connection between the two. That here he's just pointing to the Four Noble Truths, and here he's actually introducing the Four Noble Truths, and then below this, he's actually teaching the Four Noble Truths. So I'm going to teach you the Four Noble Truths as part of right view. And in 4 simple statements, you're going to be able to independently verify what is the problem in your mind, the cause of it, the elimination of it, and the path forward. Because the entire path of enlightenment is built on you establishing right view. This is where you can have a breakthrough and finally understanding once and for all why your mind experiences anger and frustration and all these other discontent feelings. And I can assure you that it's not other people. This is what the mind typically believes in the unenlightened state because of its lack of wisdom, that it's other people that are causing you to be angry. But you're going to be able to see here this morning that that's not true in a way that you can independently verify. Okay, in order to teach you the Four Noble Truths, I need to first teach you the 3 Universal Truths. These are building blocks to help you understand the Four Noble Truths. So I'm going to walk you through this to help you understand these in a way that you can learn, reflect, and practice. We call them the Four Noble Truths and the 3 Universal Truths because the Buddha knew that they were true. I know that they're true, and other people know that they're true too. But you need to know that they're true, and that's why you're not believing these teachings. So here's the intellectual learning of the universal truth of impermanence. I'm going to teach it to you in about a minute or two, okay? So what the universal truth of impermanence is that the Buddha is explaining the way the world is. He's explaining the world around you, because with the lack of wisdom, the mind doesn't understand the way the world is. So what he's explaining is that the world is impermanent, that everything around you is constantly changing. It arises, it changes, and it fades away. Okay, this is going to be a building block to help you to understand the Four Noble Truths, that the world is impermanent. Everything you see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, it is all impermanent. It's constantly changing. It's temporary. It arises, it changes, and it fades away. These are called conditioned objects. That there's a conditioned object, meaning it's conditioned on something. So this carpet, for example, is a conditioned object. It has arisen, it's constantly changing, and it fades away, and it's ultimately going to no longer exist, right? Because it is impermanent. This carpet is not permanent because it was assembled and put together. It arose as a carpet, and then it's changing, and then it's constantly fading away, and it's eventually not going to exist anymore. It is impermanent. Okay, so anything that you can see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, they are all impermanent. These are called conditioned objects. Then there's something called unconditioned objects. Unconditioned objects do not arise, they do not change, and they do not fade away. The things that are an unconditioned object are enlightenment itself. Once you get to enlightenment, the mind will be in that mental state permanently. And the natural laws that the Buddha taught, they are an unconditioned object. They are permanent. So these teachings that you're learning from the Buddha, he's describing these natural laws. These natural laws have existed all throughout time. So what he described 2,500 years ago as these natural laws, it's the same exact natural laws that existed during his lifetime that exist today. So this is why his teachings are timeless, and they apply during his lifetime and they apply now. And this is how your mind is awakening to this wisdom of these natural laws. So there's conditioned objects which arise, change, and fade away. And that's everything that you see around you with your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, the body, and the mind itself. These are all conditioned. But then the enlightened mental state and the natural laws themselves, they're unconditioned. They don't arise, they don't change, and they don't fade away. By the time you get to the enlightened mind, it's an unconditioned mind. You've eliminated the conditions that are causing it to experience anger and frustration and all these other things. So the mind is purified, so now it's permanently in that mental state of enlightenment. And this comes through learning and developing wisdom around the natural laws. Okay, so this is the universal truth of impermanence, explaining to you that everything around you is temporary and constantly changing. But now you don't believe that. That's the intellectual part. That's the investigation and examining part. But now you move it into reflection, and you try to independently verify whether this is true or this is false, because you live in this world, and I'm just describing for you an aspect of the world, and you should be able to independently verify whether it's true or it's false. The way that you do that is you look around the world and see if you can find something that you can either see, hear, smell, taste, that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind that are permanent. If you can find something that's permanent, then this is not a universal truth. Right? So a universal truth should be able to be independently verified. So what I suggest you do is start with something that you're familiar with, like this human body. You're familiar with this body. You can ask yourself, is this body permanent, meaning that it's always been the same your entire life, or is this body impermanent, meaning it's been constantly changing? So what would you say? Is this body permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It's constantly changing. Ever since conception, when the egg and sperm came together, this body's been constantly changing. We get taller, we get shorter, our teeth grow in, they fall out. We get hair, it turns gray, our hair falls out. We get bigger and smaller, right? All these things are constantly changing. This is our skin complexion changes. We get moles and pimples. We get wrinkles. Our color of our skin can change. This is the change that we experience because of this human body is impermanent. Okay. What about your relationships? If your relationships are permanent, it means you've had exactly the same people in your entire life. Or if your relationships are impermanent, that means you've had people coming and going in and out of your life your entire life. So what would you say? Are your relationships permanent or are they impermanent? They're impermanent, right? People are coming and going in and out of your life. They're constantly changing. Okay. What about your bank account? Is this permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It's going up and down and up and down. Some people's goes up, up, up. Some people's goes down, down, down. Everybody's a little bit different, right? But there's change throughout your days and your weeks and your months of the balance of your bank account, right? What about the weather? Is the weather permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It's sunny, it's raining. Some places it snows and sleets and tornadoes and hurricanes and things like this, typhoons. This is all impermanence in the weather, okay? So this is how you independently verify something. You look around the world around you. And if you need to do more of this, do it. Walk around the world and see if you can find something that's permanent. When you're walking down the street and you see a crack in the sidewalk, that's impermanence. Here in Thailand, the sidewalks kind of go up and down sometimes, right? Where other countries, they're nice and flat, right? Some streets have sidewalks, some streets don't. You can see the wood planks at the floor of the temple. Some of them are longer or shorter. Some of them are different colors, shape, and textures, right? There's a certain number of people that we started with in the class, and then more people have joined us. Maybe some people leave, like people are coming and going in and out of the class. That is impermanence. We'll have a certain amount of sound or lack thereof, and then you hear a tool that's being used. That's impermanence, right? So all these things around us are constantly changing. If you look at a fence and you see the paint is fading, that is impermanence, right? Everything's constantly changing. So this is a building block that you need in order to understand the Four Noble Truths. So now we'll move on to this next one, which is the universal truth of discontentedness. This is helping you to understand what's called conditioned feelings and what the unenlightened mind experiences on a day-to-day basis. Now, sometimes when you study the teachings of the Buddha in other places, they will refer to this as suffering. I don't use this word suffering, and I'll explain to you why, but let me first explain to you what the Buddha taught here as this universal truth, and then I'll circle back and teach you why I don't use the word suffering, and I encourage you to not use that word as well. So the original word in the original Pali Canon that is used in the original source teachings of the Buddha in the Pali language is the word dukkha. You'll hear this word occasionally. And this translates to discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. What the Buddha explains about dukkha is he explains that the unenlightened mind has three feelings: pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. Pleasant feelings are things like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. They're very pleasant for you to experience, and they're conditioned. They're based on some condition, that there needs to be some condition met in order for you to experience that feeling. So if it's sunny outside, you might get happy, right? Or if your bank account balance is up here, you might get happy. Or if your mom calls you today and tells you she's going to come visit you, maybe you get happy, right? Perhaps some of you might get happy. Maybe some of you don't, right? Maybe you get happy, right? So this is a condition. There needs to be some condition met, and then you will experience this feeling of happiness, excitement, or some other pleasant feeling. But then there's painful feelings. These are also conditioned feelings, like sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. These are very painful for the mind to experience, and they're also conditioned. Based on some condition, you will experience these feelings, right? So if you really want it to be sunny outside, and it's sunny, you will be happy. But if that sun goes away, and now it's raining, based on the condition of the rain, you might be frustrated. right? Or if you get really happy when your bank account is up here, well, then when it goes down here, you might get frustrated or agitated or annoyed, right? There's a condition that is causing this to occur. Then there's neither painful nor pleasant feelings. I put boredom and loneliness here, but some people say that's very painful for them. So you could put it in the painful category if you like, but something like shyness is a good example, right? The mind, it isn't painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. The mind is shy. Or say you were on public transportation and somebody came and sat next to you that you don't know, and your body was touching their body. You might say, it's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. The mind is uncomfortable, it's dissatisfied in this situation. Okay, so this is a conditioned feeling that based on the condition of your body touching someone else's body that you don't know, now your mind is uncomfortable or dissatisfied with that situation, right? So these are the three feelings that the unenlightened mind is experiencing. Pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant. And the Buddha is describing this as what the unenlightened mind experiences. So you know that you're unenlightened. So now you can independently verify this. Is this what you experience? Do you experience three feelings? Are there any feelings that you experience that don't fit into one of these three categories? That's how you independently verify that this is a universal truth. Is the Buddha accurately describing what you experience in the unenlightened state? Because the unenlightened mind is going to experience these conditioned feelings. You wake up in the morning, you see it's sunny outside. It's like, sweet, I'm going to go hiking. I'm going to call my friends. There's this hiking trail that I've been wanting to go on for many weeks, and I haven't been able to go. Oh, this is going to be great. It's sunny outside. I'm going to give everybody a call. We're going to go have a blast on this hiking trail. And now you're so excited and happy about this. But then you go take a shower, and now you come out and it's raining, and now you're frustrated or agitated or annoyed because your happiness was based on the sun, and the sun is not permanent. That means your happiness is not permanent too. This is why you haven't been able to get to permanent happiness, because your mind is basing its inner feelings on some condition, and that condition is impermanent. So as soon as you allow your mind to base its inner feelings on this condition, you can only be happy when that condition is met. So essentially, if this is happening and this is happening and this is happening and this is happening and this is happening, then I will be happy. But if those things aren't happening, then the mind won't be happy. So it's like if mom and dad does this, if my boss does this, if the weather is this, if my bank account is this, then I will be happy. And the idea of all of those things being true permanently, it's not possible. So that's why you haven't been able to be permanently happy. So an enlightened being is beyond these conditioned feelings. They experience unconditioned mental qualities. When an enlightened being wakes up in the morning, they're already happy. Before they even woke up, their mind's already happy. There doesn't need to be any condition met because their mind has been trained to not form its inner feelings based on some condition. So they're already happy. Now they see it's sunny outside. It's like, sweet, I'm going to call my friends. We're going to go hiking. This is going to be a blast. We're going to have a good time. Been interested to go on this trail for a long time. Now the enlightened being goes and takes a shower, and they come out and it's raining. It's raining. Okay, well, I guess I'm not going hiking. Maybe I'll stay home and read a book. Maybe I'll go to the mall. Maybe I'll invite my friends over. I'll cook dinner for them. We'll have a good time here at the house, right? You can maintain your happiness. You can maintain your joy because it wasn't based on the sun. So therefore, you can maintain your happiness because there's no condition that needs to be met in order for you to be happy. So your mind in the enlightened mental state is beyond these conditioned feelings, that your mind is experiencing unconditioned mental qualities that are permanent. So since the mind didn't base its inner feelings on any condition, it can maintain these mental qualities permanently. So ultimately, the unenlightened mind, as you're cultivating wisdom, you need to be able to see these pleasant feelings as just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones. It makes a lot of sense to eliminate anger and sadness and frustration and all these other things. People tend to understand that really well. But you need to understand that the conditioned pleasant feelings are just as much a part of the problem. If you allow your mind to get happy when your bank account balance is here, that means when your bank account balance goes here, you will be sad. So the conditionality of these happy, excited feelings, they need to be eliminated, where the mind is no longer going up and down and up and down. But by the time you do that, your mind will then permanently be happy. You will permanently be joyful. And it's unconditioned happiness or unconditioned joy. This is something that you may or may not have experienced yet in your life. This is a permanent mental state that you're experiencing. Right now, you might see those pleasant feelings as something you aspire for, that you want. You're probably chasing those. You're probably chasing certain excitement and, happiness, and your mind is chasing after these things. But you can only be happy if you get what you want. What you would like to be able to get to is where your mind can just always be happy. So as long as you allow the mind to get conditioned pleasant feelings, you will continue to experience the painful ones. This will make more sense when we talk about the mental discipline section of the Eightfold Path, how you need to eliminate the conditionality of these temporary happy feelings so that you can get to the permanent ones, right? Where you're never going to be able to get to the permanent happiness and permanent joy if you hold on to the temporary happiness. So you need to be willing to let go of the temporary conditioned happiness in order to get to the permanent happiness and the permanent joy. And you'll understand this more when I talk about the mental discipline section. So this is what the Buddha is talking about in terms of what the unenlightened mind experiences. This is a universal truth that all unenlightened beings will experience discontentedness. Their mind is happy and excited, then it's frustrated and agitated or annoyed, it's jealous and resentful, it's lonely and bored, it's shy, it's embarrassed, it's disappointed. The mind just going up and down like this throughout your life, with periods of peace here and there, but it's only a matter of time before your mind gets annoyed or frustrated about something. That's what the Buddha is explaining here as essentially the problem that every unenlightened being is experiencing. So again, you can independently verify this through looking at your own mind and seeing if there's any feelings that you experience that don't fit into one of these three categories. And if you have that as being the case, let me know when we get to questions and I will help you with it. So some people here describe this as suffering. If you studied the teachings of the Buddha in other places, you might have heard that word being used. I don't use the word suffering because in my opinion, this describes the painful feelings really well. The sadness, the anger, the frustration. You might say that you're suffering when you're having stress or anxiety or any of these other things, or guilt or shame or things of that nature. But when you get excited, like if your boss came in and said, hey, I'm going to give you a raise. You're going to get $20,000 a year more. Here you go. Here's your more money. And you got really excited. You probably wouldn't say you were suffering, right? Or if your mom called you and said, hey, I'm going to come visit you. We're going to make that favorite dish that you really like to make and that food that you really enjoy. I'm going to come over and bring all the supplies and we'll be able to cook that dish together this weekend. And you got really excited about that, right? You probably wouldn't say you were suffering in that time. Or say that that person you don't know came and sat next to you on public transportation and your body was touching their body. You probably wouldn't say you were suffering when your body was touching their body, right? So if we only use this word suffering, it's only explaining the painful feelings. We're not explaining the full spectrum of feelings and emotions that the unenlightened mind experiences. So therefore, you'd be missing 66% of what the Buddha was teaching. You'd only be understanding 33% of his teachings. And if you're missing 66% of a teacher's teachings, how could you ever experience the goal of enlightenment? So that's why I share that you need to be able to see these pleasant feelings that are conditional to be just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones. And the word discontent, discontented, or discontentedness helps you to understand that. Because when you're so excited and elated, really, thrilled and having euphoria, your mind is shaken up. It's uncalm. If you've ever been so excited that you tripped and fell and, kind of spilled yourself on the floor or broke something, you know what I'm talking about, that the mind is unstable. It's unsteady in that situation. And what the Buddha is helping you to be able to get to is where the mind can be joyful and cheerful and glad and uplifted all the time. So you need to be able to understand this word discontentedness is more accurately describing what the Buddha was talking about here with the unenlightened mind, where it's unsteady, it's unstable, it's shaken up. And that's what he's describing as a universal truth. That is the problem in the unenlightened mind. Then we've got this universal truth of non-self. I'll explain to you guys what this is, and then I'll help you to independently verify it, because you need to do the examination, investigation, and learning first, okay? This universal truth of non-self is actually a solution to one of the problems that the Buddha discovered. We're going to be talking about something called personal existence view in this course. In fact, we're going to go into it in a lot of detail, especially when we talk about the ego. This personal existence view is one of the pollutions that the Buddha discovered out of these 10 individual pollutions. There's 10 individual fetters or pollutions or taints that are hindering the mind from experiencing enlightenment. That's why he calls it a fetter. Because during his lifetime, if you were a criminal and they were trying to keep you confined in a certain area, they would attach a fetter to your ankle. This was a shackle and a chain and a ball. And this is how you would stay confined in a certain area. They would just basically turn you out in a field, and you would stay in that field because you had this big ball that you were dragging around, right? So nowadays we put prisoners in jail cells or prison cells, where during the lifetime of the Buddha, they would just attach a fetter to your ankle and you would stay in this field with all these other prisoners, right? So when the Buddha discovered these pollutions in the mind, there are 10 of them, he referred to them as fetters, the 10 fetters, because they're keeping the mind trapped or confined in the unenlightened state, where you keep experiencing anger over and over and over again, frustration, loneliness, boredom, and all these other feelings over and over and over again. It's keeping the mind hindered or confined or trapped. So it's when you get rid of these 10 fetters, when you release that ball and chain off your ankle, that you're free, that the mind is liberated, that your mind is cheerful and bright and uplifted. The mind is enlightened, and it's physically impossible for you to ever experience anger and frustration and all these other feelings ever again. So there's this first fetter, or this first pollution, called personal existence view. And I'll explain that to you first, because the universal truth of non-self is the solution for this. What personal existence view is this is where the mind thinks that this body or this mind is you. And the mind clings to this, holding on to a self-image or holding on to the self-identity, wanting other people to perceive you in a certain way. So the mind will cling to this body or this self-image, or cling to a certain self-identity in the mind, wanting others to perceive you in a certain way. And if you're being perceived that way, you feel happy or excited. But if you're not being perceived that way, you might feel frustrated or agitated or annoyed. So the mind, essentially, with personal existence view, is confused. It's misunderstanding. It's having a lack of wisdom, thinking that this body or this mind is you. So now, in the situation where you spill something on your clothing, like maybe you're in a social situation and you spill spaghetti sauce or pizza sauce or chocolate ice cream on your clothing, you might be embarrassed in this situation. This is because the mind's clinging to this self-image, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. And you can only feel comfortable if you're being perceived that way. And if you're not being perceived that way, then you will experience embarrassment or frustration or some other discontent feeling. Or if you get a wrinkle or a mole or a pimple, or you start losing your hair, you start getting gray hair, you might look in the mirror and you might be shaken up by that. This is the mind's personal existence view, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. And it can only be happy if it's being perceived that way. Or if you were like me when I was a kid, I used to get out the gel and the mousse, and I used to run it through my hair before going to the school, and I would try to get every little hair in exactly the right spot before I go to the bus stop, so much so that I would oftentimes miss the bus on the way to school, right? So you might have done those kinds of things. Or if you ever stood in front of the closet thinking, who am I going to see today, and how do I want to look? What shirt do I want to wear? What pants do I want to wear? And you're kind of trying to figure out how you want to be perceived. And you might even put clothes on. You might have looked in the mirror and like, no, that's not how I want to look. And now you change your clothes and you're like, no, that's not how I want to look. And you put some more clothes on. Okay, that's how I want to look, right? And now you go out into the world. It's like you finally feel comfortable to go out into the world because you now think you're going to be perceived in the way you want to be perceived. This is the mind clinging to a self-image. This is personal existence view, clinging to this body, thinking that this is who you are. And you can only be comfortable if you're being perceived that way. So now somebody says, wow, you're so handsome. You're so beautiful. That shirt brings out the colors of your eyes. oh, wow, they're talking about me, right? But then it's only a matter of time, because of impermanence, that someone says something negative and degrading and disparaging about your appearance. And now you feel frustrated or angry or agitated, right? This is because of personal existence view. The mind's clinging to this body, thinking that this is who you are, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. The same thing is occurring with the mind itself, the self-identity. You might be clinging to a certain culture, ethnicity, sexual orientation, maybe a nationality or a job or occupation or any number of things. Your mind can cling to, I am this. I am American. I am a Brit. I am Indian. I am Lithuanian. I am Filipino. I am Spanish. I am Colombian, right? I am French, right? I am this. I am that. I am a police officer. I am a Buddhist teacher. I am a lawyer. Any of this, I am. The mind can cling to this as who you are. And now if you cling to any of this, now you're identifying with these things as who you are. And now let's just say you're clinging to a nationality, like I am Chinese or I am Korean or any of this other I am, right? And now you're at a restaurant and 2 tables over, they're saying all Americans are lovely, kind, wonderful, blah, 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 blah. Wow, they're talking about me if you have that identity in your mind. But now 2 tables over, they're saying something degrading and disparaging about the country that you come from. And if you're holding that identity in your mind as who you are as a person, now you're frustrated, you're angry, because you think they're talking about me, right? So if somebody said something degrading about French people or Colombians or Spanish people or Brits or Americans or wherever it is that you're from, you might get angry or frustrated because your mind is clinging to this personal existence view, clinging to this identity of who you think you are. And now when you hear something that's disagreeable to you, you will get angry or frustrated. Right? So this is what the mind does. You might have been in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend. You might have clung to this identity that I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend. And now when you guys were together, there's a certain amount of pleasantness there. But then when you guys broke up, you didn't identify with I am single. And you might have thought that the best way to solve this is to hurry up and get right back into another relationship. And the mind thought that that was the way to solve this uncomfortableness, that you're uncomfortable being single, because the mind's identifying with I am a boyfriend, I'm a girlfriend, I'm a husband, I'm a wife. And now when you're single, your mind feels uncomfortable with that. And it thinks the way to solve it is to hurry up and get right back into another relationship. When in reality, what you need to do is get rid of this personal existence view and no longer cling to this identity of I am a boyfriend or I am a girlfriend, because that's not who you truly are. Or you might cling to an occupation, like I am a police officer. And now as long as you're doing that work, you feel great. But then when it's time to retire, or you get injured and you can't do that job anymore, or you get fired or something like this, because this is all impermanence, it's going to happen, now you feel like less of a person. You don't feel whole anymore. You feel like less of an individual. Maybe you're a taxi driver, but your mind is identifying with I am a police officer. And now you really struggle in life because your mind isn't doing that particular job or that occupation. That's because the mind's clinging to this identity of who you think you are. Right? So this is some of the information. And I'm going to share more with you about personal existence view when we get to talking about the ego, because that's what this is made up of. This is one aspect of the ego. But what the Buddha teaches you with the universal truth of non-self is this is the solution. This is how you eliminate that up and down of the mind when you get embarrassed by spilling something on you, or when you want to hurry up and get right back into that relationship. The way that you eliminate all of that frustration and that discontent feelings is you need to realize non-self. You need to realize that this body is not you. It's not who you are. And you need to realize that the identity that you have in your mind, that's not you either. And as long as you cling to it, wanting it to be permanent, while you live in an impermanent world, you will be frustrated. So if you cling to this body as who you are, when you start experiencing impermanence, like a wrinkle or a mole or a pimple or gray hair or what have you, you'll be frustrated or upset about that, right? Or if you cling to this identity of who you think you are, like I'm an American, now when somebody says something degrading or disparaging, you'll be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. So you need to get to the point where you realized non-self, where you strip away these labels that the mind is holding on to, thinking that this is who you are. Okay? And it's the universal truth of non-self that's going to help you do that. And I'm going to give you exact solutions of how to do that when we talk about the ego in this particular course. So this is what I'm going to share with you on this, just as an introduction to the universal truth of non-self. And then we'll talk about it in more detail later in the course. But you can actually independently verify what I'm sharing with you here, that there is no self. Right? Even though the mind has this concept or this perception, this misunderstanding, this confusion that there is a self, there isn't one. But the mind thinks that there is. But you can independently verify this, even without digging into it any further. Here's 3 ways that you can independently verify it. Think about yourself when you were a child, when you were a teenager, early adulthood, and now. These are the kind of 4 phases of your life. Childhood, like when you're, very young child, teenager, early adulthood, and now. Think about yourself and how you viewed yourself, your character, your personality. Has it been exactly the same through all those 4 phases of your life, or has it been constantly changing? It's been changing, right? So you can see that there isn't a permanent self. Here's another way. If your arm was amputated and you only have 1 hand and 1 arm, are you less of a person? No, right? You're not less of a person. Most of you guys are all shaking your heads no, right? So intellectually, you understand that this body is not you. Because if this body was you, you would answer that question differently, right? Because there's less body, so therefore there's less of a person. But hardly anybody ever answers it that way, right? Because when your arm's amputated, you have less body. So if this body is truly you and who you are as a person, you would say, yeah, I'm less of a person because there's less body. But this is where the confusion and the misunderstanding of personal existence view comes in, is that the mind right now, intellectually, can understand that this body is not you. But in the heat of the moment, if somebody says something negatively about this body, you would be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. That's the confusion and the misunderstanding that the mind has. So you need to get to the point where you realize that this body isn't you. And intellectually, you can understand that, but you need to integrate into practice where your mind can actively be practicing, where it doesn't get upset or frustrated when people are saying certain things either favorably or unfavorably about this body or any kind of identity that your mind might be clinging to. And now here's a 3rd way to understand that there is no self. Point to yourself. Where are you? Can you point? Okay, she's pointing there. Right? Okay, Martha's pointing back here. Yeah, that's common, right? Like people will point here, people will point here, right? This is very common. So let's just say that we point here. We say, I am here, right? This is a common thing. You need to look at what you're pointing to. You're pointing to a shirt. That's what you're pointing to. And you can ask yourself, is that who you are? That article of clothing that you have on, is that you? Like if we took off that article of clothing and hung it up by our hand and pointed to it, is that you? Is that who you are? No? Okay, so let's throw that away. That's not you. Where are you? Someone might point again, right? Well, what are we pointing to? We're pointing to skin. Is that who you are? That skin you've got? Is that you? If we took off the skin and held it up and pointed to it, is that you? That skin? That's not you either, right? Okay, so we throw that away. Where are you? And someone might point. Well, you've got ribs, you've got muscle tissue, you've got organs and fluid. None of those bits and pieces and parts are you. But the mind's lack of wisdom and its confusion, it thinks that this is you. So it clings to it and holds on to it, wanting this to be you, right? So you can see through this reflection that none of this stuff is you. Okay, so we're going to talk about this in more detail when we get to the ego, but here you can independently verify this. Sometimes people understand it when I first start talking about it like this. Other times people need much more time to be able to understand it. So no matter what category you fall into, if you need more time to think about this, of course, there's going to be plenty of opportunity for you to do that. So don't feel like you have to absolutely get this one before we move on. Okay, so let me know what questions you guys have here about any of these three universal truths. And remember, online, you guys can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. And here at the temple, if you could use the microphones, that'd be great.
David, the way I am processing this universal truth of non-self is that throughout the day, I'm not one person. I'm different, changing, depending on the situation and depending who I am with. And so there is no one me. There are so many me's throughout the minutes, throughout the hours, throughout the day, months and years, and there are so many me's that there is no one me. And even my meditation every day is different. Every day it's something different. The way I the meditation, the way I conducted the meditation. So is this a correct view?
That's halfway there. So you're saying that I'm a different me at multiple times during the day. What the Buddha is teaching you is that there is no me. He actually says there is no you there, right? So I see a physical body. I know there's a physical body that exists, and I know that there's a mind, and they've come together for this existence. And we refer to that as a person, but we don't identify and label this being as this is who you are. So oftentimes the mind's like, well, if I'm not the body and I'm not the mind, then what am I? Who am I? And the answer is nothing. There's nothing there. It's just a physical body. It's just a mind. It's come together. And what the Buddha is teaching you to do is not to cling to this as who you are. Because as soon as the mind clings to it, then as soon as impermanence happens, you'll be shaken up. So sometimes people come to places like here in Thailand because they say, I don't even know who I am anymore. I don't know my true self. I need to go find myself. And they will tell their family and friends, I'm going to Thailand to find myself, right? Well, they come here and they spend some time here and they might find a new hobby, new activities, new friends, new job. And they end up going back home and they're like, I found myself. I know who I am again, right? And they'll be so happy with that. But then 5 years later, when everything changes, they'll be right back in the same problem again, because none of that stuff is you. The job, the occupation, the friends, the family, the hobbies, the activities, none of that stuff is you. But the mind's going to keep trying to grab onto it as who you are, because we've been taught since birth that we need to adopt these labels of who we are. Your label is Martha, right? My label is David. You were born in Colombia, I think, right? So we might have like national anthems and flags and sports teams, and we cheer like, I am Colombian, right? And we adopt this identity in our mind. So all throughout our life, our mind's been conditioned to think that these things are who we are. And what the Buddha is teaching you to do is to let go of all of those things, because they're not permanent. And as soon as you hear somebody say something either positive or negative about any of these kinds of things, your mind will be shaken up. So you can't get to permanent peace and permanent joy as long as the mind's clinging to a self-image or a self-identity as this is who you are. So it sounds like from where you're currently thinking about it, you're about halfway there. You're realizing that, the mind, I'm not this body, I'm not this mind, but I'm a different me every time. And the answer is no, you're not even a different me every time. This is just a body and a mind that's in existence, but it doesn't determine who you are as a person. Mm-hmm. So we've got a bunch of other questions. Go ahead.
Thank you, David.
Mm-hmm.
I was recently at see my dentist, and he told me that I need root canal treatment. I said, that's okay. I said, I'd prefer you just extract the tooth. He looked pretty unhappy about that, and he gave me reasons, and all centered around that it would look better and appear better with a tooth. And I'm not really bothered. I think we're both coming at this from a different angle. Should I have root canal and a crown, or should I have an extraction?
It's up to you. That's a choice for you to make, right? Like, not everybody's going to make the same choice. The Buddha's teachings aren't like a a decision tree of telling you what you should or shouldn't do in any situation. Instead, he's helping you get rid of these pollutions. He's helping you to be able to see the natural laws so you can navigate the world peacefully. In some situations, the right answer might be to get a root canal. In some cases, it might not be, right? It might be to extract the tooth. But that's where you've got to look at your own life and your own decisions. There's a financial part of that. There's, yes, an appearance part of that. There's a functional part of that in terms of the function of eating food and things like that. So those are all things for you to consider, and nobody can make that decision for you. You have to decide for yourself. There's no part of the teachings of the Buddha where the teacher is making the decision for you. Instead, we're helping you to understand the pollutions, how to get rid of them. We're helping you to understand what the natural laws are so you can understand them. And then you navigate the world in the way that you know to be best based on the wisdom that you have. Where you're looking for guidance, we can help you, provide you guidance on the natural laws and the pollutions and stuff, but we don't tell you what you should or shouldn't do in any situation, because that's a decision for you to make. Mm-hmm.
So going back to the non-self, I learned from a meditation teacher that you are kind of like the awareness of your body, like the awareness of like your human experience and like everything that comes and goes and everything that changes. So when I learned that, I felt like it resonated with me, like it kind of made sense, just because of what you're saying, like we're always changing. So the only thing that really remains the same is like the awareness that you have of like this life that you're living, kind of thing. And I don't know if that's the right way to think about it.
Yeah, that's not permanent either. That doesn't remain the same. So the Buddha taught that there is no self, but you'll hear other people teaching different things. And this is oftentimes an area that people don't understand. If they're not studying the original teachings of the Buddha, if they haven't realized non-self and understood what that is to be able to realize non-self, then you'll get all these different answers where people are kind of giving you something to grab onto, that this is who I am. I am the awareness, or I am the mind. But as soon as you cling to any of that, that all changes. It's all going to change. So that's why the Buddha is teaching you to not cling to any of these things as who you are as a person. But because the mind has this personal existence view, it tends to keep trying to find something to grab onto and cling to, and to say that this is who I am. And you need to be able to get to a point where you strip all that away. And it takes time. And that's why we're going to talk about it in more detail, because there's other practices to be able to employ. It's not just what I'm introducing here. There's actually specific practices. Like, this is the reason why the Buddha shaved his hair. Not everybody has to shave their hair to get to enlightenment, but that's one of the ways to train the mind to not want to be perceived by others in a certain way. This is also why the Buddha wore ragged clothes, just like basic simple robes, and why people will wear like all white, the same clothes every day, is you're training your mind to not want to be perceived by others in a certain way. So you just wear simple clothes in order to do that. And there's other things that you can do besides that. So I'm going to teach you all these different practices, but what you need to be able to get to is where you strip away the mind wanting to grab onto anything, even something like awareness. Because as soon as you grab onto that, let's just say somebody said something negative about that, and disrespectful in that, and now somebody's upset or frustrated. Like, what do you mean I'm not the awareness? I am the awareness, right? And somebody gets like really angry about that. So when you strip all that away, then you can reside peaceful. Because I've never really heard anybody say all Americans are lovely, kind, and warm and gentle and all of that. But I've heard the opposite, right? Like, Americans are blah, 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 blah. And I was born in the USA. So if my mind grabbed onto that identity of that's who I am as a person, now you're frustrated or agitated or annoyed when you hear that. And what the Buddha is teaching you with the universal truth of non-self is if you grab onto anything as a label of who you are, when all that changes, or when somebody says something in a positive or negative way, your mind's going to be shaken up. So you need to get to the point where you strip away all of that and realize that there is a body, there is a mind, it's come together for this existence. We call that a person or a human being, but that doesn't define who you are. So that way, when you start experiencing change with the physical body or with anything that's going on in your day-to-day life, your mind can be at ease and be peaceful. So when people say things about Americans or this or that or the other thing, they're not talking about me. because I don't have that identity in my mind. Or somebody might say, all Buddhist teachers are lovely and kind and warm and gentle. Okay, they're not talking about me. If they're saying all Buddhist teachers are horrible, they're blah, 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 blah. Okay, they're not talking about me, because the mind's not identifying that way. So as soon as you grab onto something, you're just inviting discontentedness in, because it's only a matter of time before all that stuff starts changing and shifting.
So I was thinking about the concept of non-self, no permanent self. I was thinking, so obviously if someone's, when they're a little boy or little girl, and then they grow up, sometimes people might look at that person and say, obviously they're different, but there was an underlying characteristic perhaps. But then also, when someone was born and they grow up, there's times where somebody may say, wow, this is not the same person. This is not the same person that I knew. They're completely different. Mm-hmm. So given that there's no concept of permanent self, if we're born into this realm, can we be multiple beings in this realm, or are we still the same being? I'm a bit confused by that, because especially if somebody, we look at somebody later on and say, wow, this person is not the person I knew. They're completely different. Is that a different being as well?
No, it's the same being. It's just that their mind has changed, right? Because of impermanence. I had this situation. I used to teach Thai massage and a little bit of Buddhism in America. And I taught some initial students, and I used to teach quite a bit. But this one student contacted me like 10 years after I had taught her. And we were talking and communicating. And she was like, I've heard that you have changed, David. You're not the same person that you were that taught me 10 years ago. And I'm like, yeah, of course. In my mind, that's what I was thinking. I didn't say that to her, but I was like, yeah, of course. Like, we've all changed. We're not the same individual, meaning we don't think the same. We don't have the same thoughts. We grow and we evolve and we become a better and better person, but we are the same being. We're the same individual with the same body and the same mind, but those things are constantly changing. That is just impermanence. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Again, about right view, would it help to tweak linguistically the way that we refer to about ourselves in ways, instead of saying, I am a teacher, we say, I work as a teacher. Mm-hmm. Or instead of saying, I am Spanish, I say, I was born in Spain. Mm-hmm. Or even more, such as, instead of saying I'm a morning person, just to say I enjoy waking up early, I'm being active in the mornings, things like that.
Yeah, that's something you're going to hear me talk about when we describe the ego and dissolving the ego, because personal existence view is part of that ego. I'm going to teach you how to disassociate with these things as who you are. And these are some of the great examples that I'll use during that period of time to help you be able to see how to strip this away. Because our English language is really unfitting to describe what's truly happening here, right? Someone might say, I am angry. Well, that's not true, because there's no I here. What's really truly happening is the mind is experiencing anger. Or someone might say, I am hungry. No, there's no I here. That's not true. What really is true reality is the body needs food. So we tend to talk in ways that reinforces personal existence view. So part of the solution is to disassociate with these things, and doing that with your speech and linguistically and how your mind thinks. That's what's one of the things that's going to help you strip away the personal existence view, so you can realize that there is no self. Mm-hmm. Pamela, you have a question?
Things that help me. I think about the waves, like on the ocean, they come up. It's kind of like, we're kind of like that, like a wave that appears. And then
Can you hold the mic up a little bit?
Oh,
yeah.
like the wave that appears, mm-hmm. and then it disappears back into the ocean. Mm-hmm. Another thing is like quantum physics, it's like things appear when we focus on them, and then they disappear. Those things help me, and I think we do exist, but only in a conventional sense that we've agreed to. Like we're born in this world in certain places, but again, it's a conventional truth. It's not the ultimate truth.
Do you have a question?
No.
Oh, okay. So if you could ask questions, because if everybody shares statements, then we'll be here for a really long time and people won't learn the teachings of the Buddha. But if you guys have questions, just let me know what your questions are. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to move into one more thing that you guys will need to learn, and then I'll teach you the Four Noble Truths. This is craving, desire, attachment. This is the mind's mental longing and strong eagerness, the chasing of the objects of your affection, the mind pulling in the direction of something that it wants or expects. This is the longing, yearning. It's like the mind thinks the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. So it chases and chases and chases and chases after things. If you've ever been in the mall and you saw like a brand new pair of shoes or some jewelry or a video game or article of clothing or a new phone or something like that, and you're like, oh, I just gotta have that thing. That's the mind craving and longing, yearning. It's not the object itself. It's the way the mind is longing, yearning for the object. That's what a craving, desire, attachment is. It's pulling towards this thing, thinking that this thing is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. So it chases and chases and chases. It's almost like an unquenchable thirst that the mind has. Okay, so have you guys experienced this? Do you know what I'm talking about? How your mind's longing, yearning for things? Yeah, maybe a new condo, right? A new apartment or house or something like that, right? Or a new car, or a new boyfriend or girlfriend, right? The mind's like, oh, I just want this thing, right? Okay, so now I'm going to help you to understand the Four Noble Truths. This is where you can understand the problem, the cause, the elimination, and the path forward in a way that you can independently verify. So the problem that the Buddha discovered is everyone that is unenlightened will experience discontentedness. This is the problem. The mind's going up and down and up and down. Those conditioned feelings, the pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant. That's the problem. The mind is unsteady. It's uncalm. It's shaken up. It's forming its inner feelings based on some condition. Okay? So this is the problem, that the mind can't be permanently happy and permanently peaceful because it keeps experiencing these conditioned feelings going up and down and up and down. Then the second noble truth is explaining that this discontentedness is caused by our own cravings, desires, attachments, because the mind wants everything to be permanent when the world is impermanent. Okay, so I'm going to say that a few times and give you some examples. The discontentedness, the pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant, is being caused by craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the mind wanting things to be permanent when in reality everything around you is impermanent. Okay, so here's some examples. Say you get together with a new boyfriend or new girlfriend, and maybe you're so happy, you're so excited, right? This person is showing you affection. They're calling and checking in on you. Maybe they're inviting you to the movies or to dinner. Maybe you're going out to the park, having these nice walks together, these nice conversations, right? Maybe you're having intimate contact where you're having sexual activity. This is all very pleasurable for you. And you get so excited when this new person's in your life. But then over time, your expectations grow in things you want from this person. And their expectations grow and they want certain things from you. And you guys can't satisfy each other's expectations permanently. And now you get angry and frustrated with each other and you break up. Right? And now maybe you're even more angry, you're more frustrated. Maybe you're lonely and bored. Maybe you're missing this person. Right? What's causing this is the craving for permanence. Wanting this person to be permanent in your life. When you guys were together, there was some amount of happiness. But then when you guys were separated, your mind was confronted with impermanence. And now with the mind holding on and craving this permanence, And now the mind, not experiencing this person in your life permanently, the mind struggles and has difficulties. It's angry, it's lonely, it's bored. You start missing this person. You might think it's your love that's causing this, or your care, your concern for this person. But what's actually causing this is not your love. Love is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. This doesn't cause painful feelings. What's causing the painful feelings is the mind's holding on to this person, wanting them to be permanent, when in reality they are impermanent. They are always impermanent. Your mind just didn't understand that from the beginning, right? Even if you guys were together for the rest of your life, more likely than not, one of you would have died first, right? So this person is not permanent in your life, but the mind wants this person to be permanent. It's holding on to this person, right? You can see this if you've ever had grief or sorrow or sadness at the time of death. Like maybe grandma or grandpa have died, or moms or dads, or brothers or sisters, or people who are close to you. You might have had sorrow or grief during this period of time. Now, you're not a bad person if this occurred, right? It's just that the mind's holding on, wanting grandma and grandpa to be permanent. If the mind gets what it wants, it's happy, it's excited. Grandma and grandpa's alive. Yay, I feel so great. But now when they die, the mind's not getting what it wants. So now the mind is sorrowful or grieving or frustrated or angry because it's not getting its craving fulfilled. It's not getting what it wants, which is grandma and grandpa to be alive, right? You can see this if you've ever been to a wedding, right? If you've seen people crying or grieving at a wedding, or maybe you did when you went to a wedding. Maybe brothers or sisters are going off into the world with somebody else at this wedding, and the mind starts grieving. Mom and dad, aunts and uncles, grandma and grandpa can be crying, right? That's because their mind's confronted with this impermanence, that this being is not permanently going to be with me. They're going off into the world with someone else. It's like the mind's like, how dare you take away my brother or my sister from me, right? That's the way the mind's thinking, right? It's holding on to this person, wanting them to be permanent. Or if you could think back to when you got dropped off at university, or when you got dropped off at school when you were very young at age, this little child, 3 years old, 4 years old, going off into the world by itself without mom and dad, it starts crying. It's really upset, right? And maybe even mom and dad are crying too, right? Because they're holding on to this individual, this child, wanting them to be permanent, right? This is a great occasion. They're going off into the world. They're going to have school. This is what a parent does, is they teach their child to go off into the world. That's the sign of a great parent, is that their child can go off into the world and fully function without their parents. But yet there's this grief and sorrow and sadness. It's not the love that's causing that. It's the mind holding on and craving permanence. I'll give you another example that doesn't include relationships, and you might be able to see it even more clearly. If you bought a brand new car, and this car was something that you've been saving up for a long time, and you were very proud when you drove that car off the parking lot of the dealership, and you parked it at a store, and you went inside and you came out, and there was a scratch on your car, you might get upset or angry or frustrated. It's not the person who scratched your car that's causing you to be angry or frustrated. And it's not the scratch itself that's causing the frustration. What's causing it is the mind is craving permanence. It's wanting this car to look permanently beautiful, when in reality, this car is impermanent. It's going to have a scratch. The paint's going to fade. The upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. But if your mind's craving permanence, when you see this impermanence, your mind doesn't like that, and it becomes angry or frustrated. So one of the ways to say this is that the mind is craving permanence. But another way to say it is that the mind does not like impermanence. It doesn't like change. You can think about your life in times where things were changing. Those were probably some of the most challenging times in your life, even when you were making the decisions for the change to occur. If you changed jobs, if you changed living locations, if you changed relationships, this was probably a very challenging time in your life, because the mind doesn't like change in the unenlightened state, because it's craving permanence, right? So you can see this for yourself. Essentially, what I'm sharing with you is that your own mind is causing your own discontent feelings. All the anger, all the frustration, all the sadness, the guilt, the shame, the fear, all these feelings are actually coming from your own mind. What we tend to think in the unenlightened state is that these feelings are coming from something external. You might have been in arguments where you were adamantly trying to convince somebody to stop doing what they're doing because what they're doing is causing you to be angry. And this is just a lack of wisdom that the mind has, that it firmly believes in the unenlightened state that this other person is causing you to be frustrated. And when that anger is arising and you're attributing those feelings to something external, those painful feelings are hurtful and the mind is uncomfortable with them. The mind thinks the way to solve this problem is to push this person away or to push the situation away. You might have done this with people in your life, like friends or family, where you've pushed them away out of your life. This is called aversion. But you can see it doesn't solve the problem, because if they were the true cause of the problem, when you push them out of your life, you'd be peaceful and joyful for the rest of your life, because that's the problem. They're the ones who are causing it, and when you push them out of your life, done, over with. The problem solved. But you can see it's not solved. You still get angry. You still get frustrated. So if they were the true cause, when you push them away, everything would be completely fine. But you can see that's not the truth. Or the second thing you'll do when you're experiencing those painful feelings and attributing it to something external is you will maybe be bitter and harsh and hostile to people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. It's like an animal growling and roaring. It's like, "Arr." The mind's trying to get its cravings fulfilled. It thinks if I can just get things my way and these people will do it my way, then everything will be wonderful. So the mind's being harsh and bitter and hostile in order to get things your way. Or the third thing you might do when you don't understand the second noble truth is you might put your expectations on people and try to control them and pressure them to do things your way. And if you're doing these kinds of things, you're not going to be able to live harmoniously with all beings, because it's only a matter of time before someone does something differently than you. If you can only be happy when people do things your way, then that means you're the only person who does things your way. You can only be happy with yourself. And you might even find that to be challenging sometimes, right? So you're going to encounter people who do things differently than you. And if you can only be happy when people do things your way, then you're not going to be happy permanently. You're going to keep pushing people away, be bitter, harsh, and hostile, or put your expectations on people. So it's the mind itself that is causing this. But remember, you can't believe me. You should never believe me. Don't believe what I say. Don't believe what I write in books. Don't believe any of this stuff, because you've got to independently verify it. So here's how you do this. Take a recent situation where you've been angry or frustrated or agitated or annoyed. It might have been this morning, might have been yesterday, it might have been last week. Look at that situation with these fresh eyes, with this new wisdom. At that time, you might have been trying to blame somebody else, because that's what the mind usually does. It blames other people, right? But now look at it with these fresh eyes. What was it that your mind wanted? What were you longing and yearning for? What were you expecting? What were you craving and desiring? And if you would have got it, you would have been happy. But because you didn't get it, you were angry or frustrated or sad or some other feeling. You should be able to look at it in your own life and independently verify it. And if you can't, let me know and I will help you. I've had students over the years come to me many times and ask me questions. I'll share one of them with you, right? One time a student came to me and they're like, David, I went to work the other day and my house looked beautiful. And I came home after a hard day of work and I walked in and my wife had this craft project all over the house. And I got frustrated as soon as I walked in. How did my mind cause this? I wasn't even there. She's the one who messed up the house. Didn't she cause me to be angry? Didn't she cause me to be frustrated? And I was like, no, she didn't. Your mind was craving permanence. You were expecting this house to look exactly the same way when you came home as when you left. And when you came home, you saw this impermanence, that this craft project was all over the house. And the house looked different. That's the only thing that occurred here, is it just looked different. Your house cannot look a certain way permanently. And just like your house can't look like that permanently, this craft project that your wife has all over the house, that's not permanent either. She will put it away, right? Or maybe you'll help her to put it away, right? So as long as your mind craves permanence and your house has to look a certain way permanently, you'll be frustrated when it doesn't look that way. Right? So you need to be able to look at your own situations, and where you can't see this, let me know and I will help you. Okay. So this second noble truth is helping you to understand that the cause of your discontent feelings are craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the wanting and expecting things to be a certain way. And when you understand that, you can have a real breakthrough, because you can understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. Because if it's other people that's causing these feelings, you'll never solve it. You'll never fix it, because you can't change other people. There's 8 billion people in the world. You can't train them to do things your way. It's not possible. So when you come to understand and have this breakthrough to understanding that it's your own mind causing these feelings, that's where the third noble truth comes in. Because if your mind is causing these feelings, then that means you can eliminate it, because it's your own mind that's doing it, right? So the elimination of discontentedness is possible by eliminating cravings, desires, attachments. If you can eliminate the cause of your discontentedness, then you will eliminate the effect, right? So the cause of these feelings are craving, desire, attachment. So if you eliminate that longing, yearning, that forming your inner feelings based on something, then you can actually eliminate the discontentedness. And then the fourth noble truth is explaining the path to eliminating discontentedness is the Eightfold Path. That's what's going to help you eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments. That's the complete perfect plan that's going to teach you how to eliminate this longing, yearning, and chasing after things, forming your inner feelings on whether you get this thing or not. Okay? So everything that the Buddha is teaching you is built on right view. This is the foundation. You need to establish right view where you can see clearly that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. Now, as I shared, I am sure that you guys have been in arguments with people throughout your life where you've been adamantly trying to convince people that it's them that's causing you to be angry and they have to stop doing what they're doing. I've done that, and I'm sure you've done that too, but that was the mind's misperception. That was its false beliefs. That was its lack of wisdom that was doing that. And when you look back over your life, sometimes you can feel guilty and shameful for the things that you've experienced and the things that have happened. You don't have to feel guilty and shameful for wisdom that you didn't have 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, right? So every single argument that you've ever been in, it's all been coming from your own mind the entire time, right? But you don't have to feel guilty and shameful or anything like that, because that's just the way we function when we lack wisdom. And that's what the mind does when it lacks wisdom. It's bitter and harsh and hostile and frustrated in these situations. But there is this better way of life that the Buddha taught, where you can train your mind, you can evolve beyond that, okay? So even though we've done that in the past, we can see that that's not the truth and that's not true. We can change the way that we function in the world, but it comes through gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. But it's all built on right view. What right view is accepting responsibility for your own feelings, your own emotions. Realize that they're coming from your own mind, that it's craving, desire, attachment that's causing these feelings, that it's nothing external. Wrong view would be to blame other people for the feelings that you're having. And as long as you're blaming other people, like I mentioned, you'll never actually solve this. So let me know what questions you guys have here. Remember, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. So it looks like Martha has a question. Go ahead, ma'am.
What to do when the wrong view is kind of imposed to you? Mm-hmm. For example, the school system, they have the wrong belief that students are going to be seated all day, they're going to be paying attention all day, and you're going to be teaching all day. Mm-hmm. And if the principal goes by and that's not happening, then you get a bad review. Mm-hmm. And so I found myself exhausted when I was in the classroom because I wanted everybody to pay attention. I wanted everybody to behave well. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't achieve that. Mm-hmm. No, it's because you're not using the right method, the right procedures and all this, and that's why you're not having a good classroom. So what to do in that case?
So just because other people are craving permanence doesn't mean your mind needs to do that. As soon as somebody tells you that all your students need to pay attention, all of your students need to behave in this way, right away you know from the universal truth of impermanence, it's just not possible. And that's where sometimes you need to talk and have a conversation with your boss, if they're open to a conversation, and you try to help them to be able to see the universal truth of impermanence. And ultimately, if they're being bitter and harsh and hostile and they have this craving for permanence, you might need to find a new job. You know, that's sometimes what you need to do, because you can't survive in a situation like that. The reason why you were exhausted is because you adopted their expectation into your own mind, and you started putting that expectation on yourself. And now you were carrying around this burden to try to create this permanence in your classroom that you weren't able to do because it's not possible. So now you get exhausted because your cravings aren't being fulfilled. That's what happens with an unenlightened being, is they get to the end of their day and they feel exhausted and tired, because if they go out into the world and they're getting all their cravings met, they'll feel like, wow, this was such a great day, right? Because they were getting all their cravings fulfilled. But if you go out into the world and your cravings aren't getting fulfilled, you're getting frustrated and agitated and annoyed and all of this. And it's like, wow, this was such a horrible day. It was so hectic. And you feel exhausted at the end of your day. And that's because the cravings, desires, attachments aren't getting fulfilled. So that's what you need to be able to see for yourself. And that's how you practice right view. I know you didn't ask about this, but that's how you practice right view, is you start looking inward. Whenever your mind's angry or frustrated or agitated or annoyed, or even those conditioned pleasant feelings or the neither painful nor pleasant, instead of looking external and blaming the principal or blaming somebody else, look inward and be like, what am I craving here? What am I longing, yearning for? Because wherever your mind is discontent, there's always some cravings, desires, attachments in the mind. And oftentimes early in practice, it's multiple. It's not just one, right? You could be clinging or craving any number of things. So you would like to be able to look inward. That's how you practice right view. Where in the past, when you would get angry, you would maybe look for someone to blame, right? And then you might be bitter and harsh and hostile to them, right? But now what you would like to do is start looking inward and realizing that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, and try to figure out what are your cravings, desires, attachments, so that then you can actually eliminate them. So where the principal is telling you all these things about how your classroom needs to be conducted, you can say things like, hey, I understand what you're sharing, and I will aspire to have my classroom conducted in the best way possible. But have you considered that it's not possible for every student to function exactly the same way, because this would be permanence? And when you look around the world, Mr. or Mrs. Principal, do you see anything that's permanent around you? And then they're like, I don't know. What are you talking about? Well, I'm just curious. Like, is your body permanent? Is your bank account permanent? Are your relationships permanent? Is the weather permanent? You can use the same examples that I use and just ask them like, hey, like, can you show me one thing in the world that is permanent, where everybody's doing things exactly the same? And they're going to come to the conclusion where they're like, whoa, you're right. Like, everything around me. And you might have to help them, because you live in America, which there's a lot of craving for permanence there. Like, if you go into the suburbs, like all the suburbs are essentially all the same. There's even businesses in America that pride themselves on having the same experience, like McDonald's, right? They want the same hamburger in every single restaurant. And it's just not possible. All these things are different. So there's a lot of craving for permanence in that environment, and you need to kind of help people to see this. And if ultimately they're just still putting pressure on you and you're not interested in working there, you might need to move somewhere else, and then kind of help people to be able to understand that there's no such thing as permanence. Yeah. All right. I had the same thing here actually at one time. The air conditioning was on, the doors were open, the temple workers were upset that the doors were open and the air conditioner was on. And I had to explain to them, I was like, this is going to happen sometimes. We can't keep the doors closed all the time. Or one time I left one of the air conditioners on, and they got angry that I left it on. I was like, hey, I aspire to turn it off every single time. And that's what happens 99.9% of the time. But every once in a while, it's going to get left on. This is impermanence. And I just needed to explain it to them, because otherwise they were frustrated and angry. So it's kind of helping them to eliminate a craving, desire, attachment. And you need to be skillful when you're doing that. You have a question?
Thank you. When you attribute to the discontentment to the craving, desire, and attachment, I feel like there are also a positive side to these feelings. For example, it can motivate people. Like if you really want to buy that expensive luxurious cars, you can get promoted, and then you can improve your working abilities. And for example, if a tennis player wants to win the tournament, he can be motivated to improve his tennis skills. So I feel like there are also a positive side to this attachment or desires. Yeah.
So this is what you understand now. This is how your mind functions now, that you're used to being motivated by your cravings, desires, attachments. And that's what the unenlightened mind does, is it'll chase and chase and chase and chase and chase. But then when that craving burns out, you're not motivated anymore. You're not enthusiastic about that thing. This is why somebody will chase something for a while, and then when the craving burns out, they're disinterested in it. It's kind of like a dog chasing a rabbit, and then once it catches the rabbit and kills it, it actually is disinterested in it after that. It just kind of looks at it and walks away. It doesn't even eat it, right? That's why it was chasing it, right? So it's the same thing as the human mind will chase something for a while, and that's where it gets its motivation and enthusiasm from, but it's conditional. And now when that burns out, that's where people burn out at work, right? Where people have burnout at work, and now they're not motivated anymore. Their mind will end up swinging all the way to the other side, where they're dull and lethargic and lazy, perhaps, and complacent. So there's this better way of life that you're not familiar with right now, that you can actually be motivated through wise decision making. Right? So this is why, I know that I'll be sharing these teachings for the rest of my life. Where in other times in my life, when I was doing other things, I was operating through craving, desire, attachment. Those cravings burned out, and then I was disinterested in doing that. But here, I'm not doing this out of craving, desire, attachment, so I'm motivated. I have nothing but ambition and enthusiasm to share these teachings with you. But that will never burn out. I will be able to do that for the rest of this life because I'm doing it through wise decision making rather than craving. So while right now what you're used to is chasing things out of craving, and that's what motivated you, you need to be able to see the problem in that is that it's temporary, that craving will burn out, and ultimately you won't be motivated to accomplish that thing, and your mind will swing to the other side where you feel dull and lethargic. And then you need to be able to see this better way of life, which is pursuing things in the middle way, where you're gradually working towards a goal, objective, or interest through wise decision making, because that's sustainable. That's something you can sustain for the rest of your life because there's no craving that is producing that motivation. It's just coming intrinsically through the mind because of wise decision making, as opposed to chasing. Because the mind in the unenlightened state is trying to get those pleasant feelings. It's almost like a drug, that the mind is chasing a drug. And if I chase this thing and I get it, I will feel so happy. And this is where you see famous celebrities, they will kill themselves. They will have suicide. They will commit suicide because early in their career, they were motivated by that craving to be rich and famous. Right? And now as they're building and they're growing, they're becoming rich and famous, and everybody knows who they are. Now they get to the height of their career, and then their career fades because it's impermanent. And now they're rich and famous, and they're getting all those pleasant feelings from experiencing that. And then when their fame fades, now they're getting painful feelings because they got such pleasant feelings when they were getting famous, but now when they're not so famous anymore, they're experiencing the painful feelings of the sadness and frustration and despair. And that's where oftentimes they will kill themselves and commit suicide. So you need to be able to see the problem of pursuing things based in craving, because you can only be happy when you get what you want. And when you're not getting what you want, you feel sad or frustrated. So there is a better way of life. And you can pursue things out of wise decision making, where you're not trying to get those conditioned pleasant feelings. And that's what's going to create a sustainable long-term growth for you as an individual. Mm-hmm.
The decision based on wise decision,
Yeah, when you understand the pollutions that are in the mind, one of the main pollutions is called sensual desire, where the mind is longing, yearning through the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind itself, and it's chasing after things. And when you develop this mental discipline, you'll be able to see the mind longing, yearning, and chasing after things. You'll be able to see it with your mind because you'll feel the mind pulling towards something. And you'll know that whenever your mind's pulling towards something, that you can only be happy when you get it. And you'll be able to see the discontentedness, and you'll be disinterested in making decisions through craving, desire, attachment. So if you're walking past a shoe store, for example, and you see that there's a pair of shoes in the window, and you're like, oh, I got to have those shoes. That is going to be so awesome. I want those shoes so badly. You can see your mind pulling towards it, and it's trying to get those pleasant feelings. And you're like, no. Hold on a second. Do I need these shoes or do I want these shoes? You know what? I've got 30, I don't anymore, but I've got 30 pairs of shoes at home. What's one more pair of shoes going to do for me? I really don't need these shoes. The mind just wants it. So you know what? Let me restrain the mind. Let me pull it back, kind of like riding a horse and kind of pulling the reins back and be like, you know what? I don't need those shoes right now. I'm going to not purchase them. So you can get to the point where you see what your mind's doing with mindfulness or awareness of mind, that it's longing, yearning, and pulling towards these things, and you would like to pull it back. So you could be like, say, for example, a famous tennis player, and someone could do that with craving, desire, attachment, and they could be motivated by that, but ultimately it's going to be extinguished, and now that's going to burn out, and now they're not going to be motivated to play tennis anymore. Or they could go all the way over here where they sit around on the sofa doing nothing anymore, and they're just sitting around being dull and lethargic. In either one of those situations, they're not permanently happy. Or they could come to the middle, and they could gradually pursue a career in playing tennis, making wise decisions to exercise well, to condition the body well, to eat well, to have good mentors and coaches, practice sessions and things like this. And now they're gradually building up their career to get to the point where they can be a potentially a famous tennis player, and they can be at the top of their sport, but they've done so through wise decision making, and now they can sustain this instead of just racing after it and rushing after it. So you can come to understand wise decision making through your mind, that when you're making decisions based in craving, anger, and ignorance, which is something you haven't learned yet, it's going to always produce unwholesome results. When you're making decisions through generosity, loving kindness, and wisdom, it's always going to produce wholesome results. But this is something you haven't learned yet. Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to craving, desire, what would you say about just trying to be intentional? So, for example, when you mentioned the shoes, I bought some shoes this weekend, but I was really trying to be intentional about it because my old shoes are already battered and kind of getting broken. So I thought, okay, this is something I can say that I need, because I need to have shoes, right? Yep. But then on Saturday, I figured out there's a cool donut shop near where I live. And I thought, I'm going to buy a donut from this shop. I didn't need a donut. I enjoyed it. But then again, I only bought one. I enjoyed it. I made instead of reading when I ate it, I thought, okay, I'm going to enjoy this rather than doing something else. Mm-hmm. So, but at the same time, is it good to take what do you have to say about that? And also, sometimes in terms of cravings, is it better to have an attitude of like, I can take it or leave it? So it's nice I enjoyed that donut. It was great, but I didn't really need it, but I'll be fine if I don't have it too.
That's doing something without craving, desire, attachment, right? So it's not a fact, like you can enjoy things without a craving, desire, attachment, but the mind doesn't know how to do that when it is unenlightened, because it's used to having all these cravings, and it can only enjoy something if it gets what it wants. So living in a place like this, you'll show up to that donut shop sometime thinking you're going to get a donut, and it'll be closed. Or they'll be like, we sold out of our donuts. We don't have any more donuts. And you can observe the mind, and you can be like, oh, okay. And you can just be polite and say, hey, I'll come back another time. And you can maintain your contentedness. So you can see you're not craving that donut. Whereas if you get angry or frustrated or even the slightest bit annoyed in that situation, there's a craving there. And there are certain things that you can do, which the entire Eightfold Path will teach you how to do, that is how to eliminate these cravings. So you need to observe the mind and you need to work with the mind. It's not just the fact that the mind is having a donut that determines whether or not it's a craving or not. It's what's going on within the mind. And that's where you need to observe the mind, and that's where the mindfulness comes in. Mm-hmm. Okay, so normally I take a break to be able to give you guys the opportunity to break, usually around 10:30. But because of our morning and the questions, I've just been kind of gradually walking through this. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to pause here and give you guys an actual early lunch so that we can go have lunch. And then when we come back, I'm going to finish up the Eightfold Path because that's going to help you to be able to learn the entire Eightfold Path in its entirety. We may not get to the 3 poisons today, and that's okay. But before we go to lunch, what I'm going to do is teach you right intention. This is only going to take me like probably 5 minutes to teach it to you, and then we'll take a little break for lunch, okay? So let me teach you this right intention. This is the second step of the Eightfold Path. The Buddha says, in what, monks, is right intention? The intention of renunciation, the intention of non-ill will, the intention of harmlessness. This, monks, is called right intention. Okay, so there's 3 things that he's talking about here: renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. What renunciation is, or sometimes people translate this as right thinking or right thought. I translate it as right intention because this is something you're developing in the mind. You need to have the intention of renunciation, where you have the willingness to let go of your false beliefs, your false opinions and views, your unwholesomeness. There's certain things that you're doing right now that is unwholesome. And there's also certain false beliefs, certain false opinions and views that you currently have in your mind, like anger is good, or other people are causing you to be angry or frustrated. One of the first things that you need to be willing to renunciate is the belief that other people are causing you to be angry, or other people are causing you to be frustrated. You need to eliminate that false belief or opinion or view, because as long as you hold on to it, you'll never be able to see true reality and actually experience enlightenment. But the teachings of the Buddha, you're not bringing in new beliefs in order to get rid of your old beliefs. You're actually bringing in wisdom, right? When you independently verify that something is true and it conflicts with your beliefs, you need to get rid of your beliefs. But if you're unwilling to do that, you're not going to be able to get to enlightenment. Because if you're angry or frustrated or sad or any of those other discontent feelings, there's certain false beliefs and opinions and views that you currently have in your mind, and you need to be willing to let those go. So that's why the Buddha teaches in this second step that you need to have the intention of renunciation, where you're willing to let go of your false beliefs, opinions, and views, and your unwholesomeness that the mind is holding on to. Essentially, you need to have an open mind to bring in this new wisdom, and that's what's going to help you to transform your mind. Then you need the intention of non-ill will. What ill will is animosity, bitterness, anger, hatred, and all those lesser versions like the frustration, agitation, annoyance, and so forth, right? So non-ill will is the opposite of that. It's goodwill. It's loving kindness. It's a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. And you're going to need to have this thinking or this thought or this intention of seeing all beings be well, because that's going to help to motivate all the other things that you need to develop on the path. Because this third aspect is the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. Because as long as you're causing harm to others, harm is going to come back to you. So you need to have the thinking or the thought or the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested in causing harm to others, because any harm that you cause is going to come back to you. So this is right intention, this renunciation, willingness to let go of your false beliefs, opinions, views, your unwholesomeness. There's certain unwholesome things that you're currently doing right now. You're not perfect, right? The ego is going to want to make you think that you're perfect, but you're not, because you're getting angry, you're getting frustrated, you're being bitter and harsh and hostile with people. So you're going to need to be willing to let things go. And then you're going to need to have this goodwill, or this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, and this harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. Okay, so just a little summary before we head out is right view is the Four Noble Truths, and accepting responsibility for your feelings, your intentions, your speech, your actions. this is where you understand that it's your own craving, desire, attachment that's causing these feelings. You need to be able to see this and independently verify it for yourself. Then right intention is practicing the intention of renunciation, where you're willing to let go of your false beliefs, your false opinions, your false views, your unwholesomeness, where you cultivate the intention of loving kindness or goodwill towards all beings, and this harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to other beings. So do you guys have any questions on this first section, the wisdom section of the Eightfold Path? Because everything else is built upon these two factors. No questions? Okay. So what I'm going to do then is it's 11:30. Let's see. If we come back at 1 o'clock, which is an hour and a half from now, I'll have plenty of time to teach you guys the rest of the path. So if you guys would like to take an hour and a half lunch break, come back at 1 o'clock, and that's where I'll pick it up. I'm going to move into this moral conduct section and the mental discipline section. This is where you're going to see how it all comes together. And the Buddha's giving you exactly what you need to be able to move your mind to this enlightened mental state. And it's all built upon this foundation of wisdom. So enjoy your lunch, and perhaps I'll see you guys at 1 o'clock. Okay? So thank you so much. Mm-hmm.